Like that read into the record. I'm just saying. Mr. Gerstenmaier, when we partner with industry, how do we ensure that we don't take jobs away from our NASA facilities? Let me qualify that. My district, half a mile south of NASA, the Johnson Space Center, has thousands of people that work in my district. It's huge for us as a country, national security, and I'll talk about that more. But how do we ensure that we don't take jobs away from NASA? And I like the thing about the NASA T-shirt, by the way. All you see is NASA T-shirts. You don't see, who was that other smaller space agency?
Don't recall.
Oh, you don't recall? Okay, all right. For example, Boeing is subcontracting back to JSC to handle mission control for the Starliner missions. My district is home to many of those great NASA employees who work there, and some 50% of the JSC jobs are tied to ISS. So I think it's critical that we ensure that the commercialization of ISS will still model that of the Space Shuttle and ISS programs where integration, operations, and other activities are still done. Did I mention Johnson Space Center is close to me? So, Mr. Gerstenmaier, how do we ensure that that happens, that we don't want those jobs to go away?
You know, again, I think the right role for NASA is to do the long-term research, technology, and exploration. So the activities around the moon, those kind of things that we don't really know how to do to build the next generation of rocket engines, to build the next generation of flight control strategies, those kind of things of how we operate independently from the Earth, those are the roles of the government to do that, to establish that first where it doesn't make sense. We're building the heavy lift launch vehicle. As you know, the Space Launch System, there's not really a market for that. If you look at that, that's really unique to what we need to do around the moon and other activities. But then once that market then comes behind it, then we can use the private sector. So I think the role of the civil servants are to do these really hard research, cutting edge technology development that don't make sense at all for industry. It's good for the government to own that because then we can distribute that to industry as a whole and they can use that moving forward. So I think there's a strong role for the civil servants in the government to continue to do those research activities.
Well, thank you for that. Mr. Martin, you said that, and I'm going to have to, you said the Chinese space station is set to be operable 2022. Was that the year you said?
I believe it's going to be, portions will be in orbit by 2020, Bill?
Is it 2020? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Stallmer, I want to fix one thing that you said. In your comments, you said that you think the USA needs to be the leader in space. The USA does need to be the leader in space.
We are, and we need to continue to be our leadership.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to point out. Now, Dr. G discussing his dissing of the Polish Space Agency.
It was just noting another space agency
okay.
that does not have T-shirts.
It's no big deal, Mr. Stallmer. It's just something people are going to remember about you for a long time.
I get hate mail.
Yeah. Welcome to the club.
Can we strike that from the record, Chairwoman?
And I appreciate you talking about the international agreement, no nukes in space, but I do want to point out, military experts know that in any military conflict, whoever occupies the high ground has the upper hand. There is no higher ground than space. And so while I appreciate that in the words of nuclear nonproliferation, or in terms of nuclear nonproliferation, I still want the United States of America to have preeminence in space. I absolutely do. And I remember a great one-liner from Senator Graham who said that if the lamb is going to lie down with the lion, we want America to be the lion. So space is important to us. We want to have that preeminence and make sure that we maintain that. A couple of small questions I have in my time left over. Mr. Gerstenmaier, you said that we had increased the bandwidth. Some 600%, did you say?
The bandwidth is 600 megabits.
600 megabits. What was it?
It was, I think, about 100 megabits.
So that's a substantial increase. So we're making progress. Okay. Well, I appreciate